Chapter 1. Announcement. A typical morning for the Princesses of Deception started at exactly 6 a.m. Their alarms would ring in exact synchronization as the two princesses would rise from their beds, Princess Aria from her purple bed and Princess Sakura from her blue one, after which they would perform the necessary human ablutions and be dressed and ready by 7:30. After that, they would eat their daily energy bar and either study or do other tasks their sire assigned for them for the rest of the day. However, today, the day of their 13th birthday, the schedule was atypical. It started as Princess Aria's curtains were speedily thrown back, and Megatron commanded the lights in her room to rise directly from 0 to 100%, which roused the young princess from slumber instantly. "Mind saying good morning, sire?" Megatron was matter-of-fact, looking at his young sparkling, eager for the day to start. He rushed her out of bed, giving her the orders to get dressed, rather formally. When she looked at the time and noted that it was 6 a.m., she said, "Sire, seriously? It's only 6 o'clock. 1 more hour, please?"
"You should be grateful. When I worked tirelessly in the mines, I hardly got any sleep at all."
I hate it when you fill me with history lessons.
History lesson or not, you have an important day ahead of you. So does your sister. I'll be rousing her soon as well.
Okay. Wait, today's our birthday. Are you finally going to let us join the Decepticons?
What have we spoken about?
Not till we're 20 years old.
Exactly. Now hurry.
Okay. Let me see. Should I wear one of my velvets or...
No. You'll need to dress far more formally than your norm.
Oh, okay. Let me see. It's a bit revealing, but it could be formal. How about this one, sire?
Color or choice does not matter to me, but it is formal enough. And don't forget to wear your silver Decepticon symbol.
Oh, of course. Once the young princess had picked out her dress, she proceeded to get herself ready. The same procedure that Megatron did with Aria, he followed with Sakura across the hall. She was even more reluctant to get up, and even more sad when she learned that she wouldn't be part of the Decepticon army. Upon asking questions once more as to why she was getting dressed so formally, Megatron barely responded. He only said that the meeting was formal and that she needed to make haste to get ready. Though tired and a little disgruntled, Sakura obeyed her sire, as she was always apt to do. 30 minutes later, Megatron sat in the casual second-floor living room in his palace atop the Nemesis, just below where his two femme sparklings were, waiting for them, already clad in his armor. When the two of them walked down the black marble double staircase, Megatron was very happy to see that they were ready for the day ahead. Aria wore a sleeveless, black, sparkling ball gown, with her silver Decepticon symbol to match. Sakura, however, chose a similar style ball gown. However, instead of black, she wore a beautiful blue color. They walked elegantly down the stairs, meant for this moment. Whatever they would be doing, they knew it was important, and they needed to look their best. Megatron, admittedly, was proud of his sparklings in that moment. He knew the day ahead would be hard for them, but he knew he was doing the right thing as they walked towards him. Admittedly, the two princesses were a bit terrified to see their sire fully clad in his pointed metal armor. Even though they had seen him wear it for the 13 years they had been alive, they were still kind of creeped out by it, to say the least. Megatron looked his sparklings up and down and said, "By the Allspark, I can't believe it was only 13 years ago I held you as sparklings. You look so much more mature than that now." It was at that moment Megatron pulled something from behind his back, and the young princesses were surprised to see that it was 2 bouquets of flowers. One was a bouquet of purple hyacinths, the other one of pink sakura blossoms. He handed the purple bouquet to Arya and the pink one to Sakura. "Make sure you hold these straight and keep your heads up high." "Yes, sir," they both said. They were excited, though a bit nervous, for this moment. "So, is the meeting here, sire?" Arya said, clasping her flowers delicately in her hand. "No, it is aboard the Nemesis." "We're finally going aboard the Nemesis?" Sakura said, before clearing her throat at her sire's clear disapproval of her loud outburst. "I mean, it's an honor to go aboard the Nemesis, sire." Megatron silently smiled at his sparklings. Although they were young and needed far more experience, he truly did believe that in the event of his passing, they would be worthy enough to take the cross of the throne of the Decepticons on their backs. He turned and said, "Follow me. Keep your back straight, your heads up high, and Arya, face your Decepticon symbol the right way, please." "Oops," Arya said. She quickly adjusted her symbol, and the 3 of them walked down the remaining staircase to the first level, then outside, passing the black shielded iron gates, to a world that they only barely knew of, the top of the flight deck of the Nemesis. Below them, they could see what they used to watch out of their window, where Seekers would practice their flight drills once a week every morning. They loved watching the flight drills, as they much enjoyed seeing the Seekers rise and take off, and wondered to themselves, without asking their sire, if they would be able to transform. Out of curiosity, they turned back, to only see the top of the Nemesis. This didn't frighten them, of course, as they knew their house was shielded from any sight, even theirs. Megatron quickly called forth a ground bridge, and upon passing through it, they discovered that they were in one of the back hallways of the Nemesis. Quickly, the 2 princesses followed their sire, not making a single sound. When they passed a couple of troops in the hallway, the troops saluted to their master and did a polite small curtsy to their princesses. In turn, the princesses gave a small polite wave. Their sparks were warm at the sight of a seemingly friendly Decepticon troop, and they were hoping that they would be treated with as much respect going forward. If they only knew the fear Megatron induced in those poor troops to keep that respect. As they went forward, they found themselves at grand sliding doors. It was at this point that Megatron turned to them. "This is the entrance to the bridge of the Nemesis. Please wait here until you hear my call. The announcement I'll be giving across the bridge will be projected on this monitor. Watch it. When I mention you, the doors will open, and you will need to process forward, side by side. Can you do that?" They both nodded their heads. They were both nervous and excited at the same time, at the prospect of being on the bridge of the Nemesis in front of all of the troops that could be present. They, of course, knew that even those troops who were mining at the moment would be listening to whatever their sire had to say, because the announcements were broadcast to every single Decepticon location there could be within the vicinity of the ship. Within just moments, the monitor flickered on, and they heard Megatron's voice. "Today, I grant you all a special honor. To set your sights upon my sparklings,
The princesses of the Decepticons, the daughters of deception.
At this moment, the doors to the bridge elegantly opened. Nervously, yet excitedly at the same time, the two femmes walked forward, side by side, keeping their steps perfectly in sync, their heeled shoes clicking across the metal floor of the Nemesis. The troops looked up at them in awe, and as much as the princesses could see, with their personal visual impairment issues, they tried to scan across the ship without turning their heads, so that they could see as many troops as possible. Before them on the bridge, they noted 4 figures: their sire, the known communications officer, Soundwave, the doctor, who they were fairly close with, as they saw him whenever they needed a medical exam, and a small silver seeker that they knew from the historic archives as the ship's second-in-command, Starscream. Once they had finished processing, they stood before their sire, right beside Knockout and Starscream.
Today, I present before you my sparklings. I have watched them grow, and I have taken care of them. But now, that torch must be passed to someone else, in the way of betrothal.
The two princesses were very surprised by this. Marriage and betrothal hadn't even crossed their minds. That idea hadn't even begun to pass their brains, and now it was being presented before them so fast. But who were the candidates? Soundwave? One of the troops? Knockout? Sakura's spark jumped just a little bit at this, as she had had a small fondness towards the doctor. But she'd never carried out anything because she didn't know if romance was in her sire's plan for her. Clearly, however, it was. As her sire said,
Knockout, please come forward.
Knockout stepped forward just a little bit closer to Megatron.
Sakura, please step forward.
Sakura stepped forward, nervously.
Knockout, will you take care of her?
Knockout bowed his head gently.
It would be my honor.
It was at that point that he gently took Sakura's hand in his own. Hers was soft. His was clad in his metal grounder armor. He looked at her, and she looked at him. It was then that Knockout bowed before her.
It would be my honor to love you and take care of you for the rest of my existence. Princess Sakura.
Sakura almost cried at the gentleness in the doctor's voice. He had been soft to her before, but not this much. She was so happy to see that she would be betrothed to him, but she wondered for the fate of her sister, as did Arya, who was trembling nervously. As it appeared, 2 options were before her. One was Soundwave, the loyal surveillance officer. That wouldn't have made her mind so much, other than the fact that Soundwave was silent, if not a bit terrifying, and she'd never known Soundwave outside of his armor. The other was the commander, who she knew just a little more about, but the things she knew weren't necessarily good. He was an unpredictable scoundrel, and somewhat of a traitor to her sire. She had no idea who would be chosen for her. It seemed as though hours went by before her sire finally called out a name.
Starscream, please come forward.
Timidly, almost stiffly, the commander stepped forward, his wings held high.
Arya, please step forward.
Arya stepped forward gently, looking at her sire, and then to the commander. One she knew and loved. The other she barely knew.
Starscream, will you take care of her?
Arya couldn't help but note the slightly more threatening tone that her sire used with his second in command. She figured this tone of voice was to do with how treacherous the commander was towards her sire. But if he was so treacherous, why would her sire entrust the commander with her care? It was all too odd for Arya. But Starscream timidly and softly responded,
"It would be my honor, Lord Megatron,"
before turning to the young princess, taking her hand in his metal-clad one, and bowing before her.
"Princess Arya, it would be my honor to protect you with my life."
In that moment, she felt somewhat of a gentleness from the commander that she hadn't expected. She expected him to be an old, war-hardened criminal, but she was surprised to hear that his voice could be so soft. But she and Sakura still wondered, why? Why did their sire do this? Well, they were about to get their answer, as Megatron spoke to the audiovisual display once again.
"You may be wondering why I would be entrusting these two with my sparklings' care, and why I would introduce you to my sparklings at all. Today, I will be departing this warship."
What? Arya couldn't help but gasp, and Sakura looked up at her sire in shock. "Why?" Sakura asked, not being able to contain herself.
"Our forces are dwindling far faster than I had ever expected. I am planning a journey into space in which I will recruit new soldiers for our armies."
Even though they didn't want to believe it, the princesses knew that this was understandable. Megatron then continued,
"If I do not return after 7 years of absence, this day, 7 years from now, my sparklings will turn 20. As such, they will take charge of the Decepticons. It is my hope, my expectation, that my sparklings are treated with the utmost respect and care. Is that understood?"
The entire ship rang out with a "Yes, sir!" before Megatron cut the transmission. He turned to everyone else on the bridge, aside from Soundwave, who'd already gone back to his workstation.
"Now, if all of you would please follow me."
Megatron led the two princesses and their betrothed, off the bridge and back to the back hallway of the Nemesis. He called up the ground bridge, and they found themselves arriving at the top of the Nemesis, at which Megatron reached forward and found his arm on the latch of the iron gate that would lead into his palace, his Deceptia Grand Manor. Everyone walked in, Knockout and Starscream looking surprised, but daring not to say anything. As Megatron led them through the manor, he gave Knockout and Starscream a tour of all the rooms, even showing them rooms that were prepared specifically for them. Then, he took them to the 3rd floor of the manor, where the young princesses slept. In the center of their 2 rooms was a beautiful area clad in black marble. The roof of this area was glass, allowing in plenty of natural light. It featured a piano and lovely, beautiful areas with statues, trellised walls, and gorgeous pergolas, underneath which there were benches where the young femmes could sit and reflect on everything. At the other end of the hallway from the entrance, close to the front of the manor, overlooking the front of it, sat a beautiful black and gold grand piano that Arya played on the daily.
"This is where you'll be spending most of your time with my sparklings. If they so wish, they may go down to the second floor, and if necessary, they may enter the library for their studies. This entire house is theirs and yours, but I would suggest you use it respectfully."
"Wait, sire," Arya said. "Now that we're off the bridge, can we talk about this?" "Yeah," Sakura said. "When are you leaving? Tonight? Now? This afternoon?" Megatron looked to his sparklings before pressing the Decepticon symbol on his chest that would remove his armor so that he could look his sparklings dead in the eye.
"I leave in just a few moments. We are already flying towards our space bridge."
"Sire," Arya said, about to cry, realizing that her sire was leaving both her and her sister with two betrotheds that they barely knew. Sakura practically burst into tears, and in a single burst of affection that Knockout and Starscream had never seen before, Megatron swept the two of them into a surprisingly soft hug.
"Knockout and Starscream will take care of you. I've assured that. And if anything goes wrong that you cannot handle absolutely, you are free to comlink me. I might be out of range, but I'm sure Knockout and Starscream can take care of any intrusions. If you absolutely need me, though, you can space bridge to wherever you find my signature. I will hope that you'll only use that for a dire circumstance, however."
"We understand. You promise you'll come back alive?" Arya asked. "Yeah, you're not gonna die on us, are you?"
"I didn't die in the gladiatorial pits of Kaon, and I am not dying now. I will return, and if I'm gone long enough, I hope to see you two in succession ruling the Decepticons in my absence. In the meantime, Starscream,"
Megatron said, releasing the hug and turning to Starscream.
"You have your orders."
Starscream shrunk back just a little bit, but nodded silently and said,
"Yes, my lord."
Megatron once again turned to his sparklings and grasped their hands in his much larger ones, looking them in the eyes, him looking down at them looking up at him. He said,
"My spark is always with you, no matter where I am."
Then he released their hands and said his final farewell before turning away and walking down the stairs. The two sparklings stared in silence as they stood at the two front windows flanking the piano, watching their sire call for the ground bridge and fly from the very top of the Nemesis towards the space bridge. They didn't stop staring until at least 2 minutes had gone by, and their sire and the space bridge was out of sight.